Kalimera, kalispera, kalinikta, no matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be. Will you be watching the game tonight? Here to dissect it all and have a bubble bath later are three of my favourite podcasters. Let's rock and roll, squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
It was too big of an occasion to not set up an impromptu show. So those listening on replay may never listen on replay, depending on what the result is tonight. But here to help me along and help you guys along are three of my favourites. Do I even need to introduce them? Sure, fine, I will. Tom Canton, welcome back to Squad Central.
Hello, how are we doing?
Doing good, doing good. Harry Symeou, Kalispera.
Good evening. I was going to do the Emery good evening, and then I just bottled it at the last minute.
You bottled it.
Nice.
That's great.
Like that.
Potsy, welcome back to Squad Central. Good to see
Big
you.
up, man. Big up. Good to see you. Good to see you all, squaddies. Hope you're doing well. It's been too long since I've been on here. I hope you're all well. And it's great to be on with you two gentlemen as well.
I love it. Good evening, squaddies. At ease. I always lose my manners when Super Kev isn't here. I love to Super Kev. He's watching and enjoying all of the shows and all of your love. And yep. And we're loving it. Chief Like Officer Tammy's in the house, so be sure to hit that like button.
Yep,
Thanks for joining us at the last minute, squaddies, because I had to talk to these guys about this match today, and everyone's here. I'll rattle off the hellos, but Trev, Wesbird, Carol, Andrew, DJ, Alison, you're all here. You're all here. Right, let's get stuck into it, shall we? I already need a bubble bath, but here's the scoop. It's Tottenham versus Manchester City this evening. Their slogan, Tom, for years and years has been dare to do, and they've done absolutely bugger all. Will they dare to win tonight? What do you think?
Probably not.
That's the show done. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, I've got zero expectation. I'm not going into this game fooled into thinking that we're going to get any favours. I've been saying this for some time. I obviously want them to get a result. That doesn't make me, by the way, any less of an Arsenal fan. But I want them to because it would give us a massive boost for us winning the title. I struggle to understand why it's even a question for anyone, to be honest. Obviously, we want Spurs to get a result. Like I see a lot of posts on social media saying, "Oh, I could never back Spurs," and all this. It's like I couldn't give a toss about that side of it. I care about Arsenal winning trophies, and Arsenal winning leagues, and for that to happen, we need them to do us a favour. So I would like them to, yes, please. So there you go.
Harry, there's all this pessimism around this match for Tottenham, but when you look at their record against Manchester City, it's been pretty decent. Yes, they lost in the FA Cup, but if there's a team that has managed to get a result against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, it's definitely been Tottenham. Maybe more so, not so much under the recent managers, but they got a draw. A mate of mine sent me a message. He goes, Soph, we got a draw up there with Emerson Royale and Ben Davies inside. Is there a little bit of hope here? Are people writing them off, especially considering that they are still playing for a Champions League spot and Aston Villa have to play a very on-fire Crystal Palace side?
There's always going to be a little bit of hope, but I think what everybody's trying to do is protect themselves from feeling really deflated at 10 p.m. tonight. I know that's what I'm doing. And that's why I'm telling everybody that they've got no hope. But if you look at this from a completely neutral point of view, then you will look at this fixture and think it is a potential banana skin for City. But the problem is that when I've looked at the recent results that Tottenham have got against them, and you mentioned that FA Cup defeat, which is obviously a bit of an outlier in this, but in the Premier League, I always looked at that Tottenham team and I thought, okay, they're not great, but they're set up by Jose Mourinho or they're set up by Antonio Conte. And they know how to frustrate. And they're going to be negative and they're going to be boring. And we know from the past, in particular with Mourinho, he was Guardiola's kryptonite so many times because he always figured out how to kind of stifle him during his time at Real Madrid. Remember the famous Inter-Barcelona rivalry that kind of developed in Europe? Mourinho was the kind of guy that would always get under Pep's skin and frustrate him. And Conte is not exactly the same, but of a similar mold. And so I looked at those two and I thought they're capable of setting up a team. Ange Postecoglou's defense is about as useful as a chocolate fire guard. It is so bad. Like, it is just really, really poor. And they're bad from set pieces and they get caught on the transition all the time. This iteration of Spurs doesn't give me any confidence. So I'm going to say they've got no chance because I think in terms of the styles thing, I think they're going to play right into Man City's hands. And the other thing that worked in their favor in years gone by was that they had a cracking atmosphere at their stadium. You know, I've been there a few times and I'll hold my hands up and I'll say, when that place is up and shouting, it's a difficult place to go. That South Stand is incredible. But half of them aren't going to turn up and the other half don't want them to win. So
is that real? Is that true? Half of their fans aren't going to show up.
A lot of them have put their tickets on exchange, haven't they? I saw a Spurs fan who's a friend of mine said there were about 8,000 tickets on the exchange.
Wow.
Like you saw the press conference with Ange before, like, and he was saying, do you want us to look like, do you really think that our fans want us to lose? And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is great and I get where you're coming from, but yes, a lot of your fans do want you to lose this game, and that's the reality of it.
Oh, Dan, I know that people hate this question if the roles were reversed, right? How would you be feeling tonight if it was us in their shoes as a fan? As candid as you can be.
I feel like it's a different situation. Let me explain what I mean by that. When Arsenal don't win the league, I don't see it as a successful season when we get top 4. I couldn't give a damn if we come 4th or 5th. I've always been the same. It doesn't bother me. It bothers some people. Tottenham getting top 4 is like a trophy. To me, it's not. When we don't win something, I don't really care. As long as we don't get embarrassed and come 15th or something, it doesn't really bother me because we ain't won it. So if you was to say to me, if Tottenham win the league, it means Arsenal might get 4th and top 4, I'd say, nah, I don't want Tottenham win the league. So we'll just go in the Europa League. Some people might disagree with that and go, no, I want what's best for my club. And what's best for my club is top 4, blah, blah, blah. We're too big a club to worry about whether we're in Champions League or Europa, in my opinion. Like, let's just go again next season for the title. So I think it's different when you're Tottenham because you're so desperate as a club, and Daniel Levy is so desperate to get that Champions League club, get that Champions League. But actually, it doesn't really matter because Tottenham fans have made their mind up. They don't really want Arsenal to win the league. And what I've become more surprised by in the last 24 hours is the Arsenal fans that think it's a disgrace for Arsenal fans to want Spurs to win this game. I find that bizarre. Like, to me, we would need them to win this game, right? Or draw this game at least. It doesn't make you a bad fan if you're supporting Tottenham for the night. And when you say supporting Tottenham for the night, we're not going to sit there in a Spurs shirt and a scarf and go, come on, let's go, and start like doing all this stuff, are we?
You are wearing white though, Dan.
I am wearing white, yeah. But you get what I'm saying here? I can't understand why it is a disgrace for an Arsenal fan to talk about the game tonight and say, it'd be really nice if Tottenham can pick up over. How does that make you a disgrace of an Arsenal fan? For me, that's what we need to win the title, right? It's bizarre to me. Listen, I personally believe that Manchester City will put 7 past West Ham and Spurs. I think it'll be that easy for them. I think it'll be 3-0 tonight and 4-0 on Sunday. And I think the league will be gone. I've accepted that. If anything else happens, it's a bonus. I think we're going to come second, 2 points behind City. It's done. Don't make me a bad fan. Like, people keep telling me that's a really bad negative attitude to have. I'm just being real. I'd love that not to be the case. But I think that is going to be the case, unfortunately. So I can't sit there and get really, really massively into this game tonight. I'm not going to sit down. I'm counting down the minutes. I think Man City are going to easily win this game because I agree with Harry. This is a shocking team that are getting absolutely battered week in, week out by teams much worse than Manchester City. This is going to be easy tonight, and I've gone 3-0, and that could be kind. When I heard today, wait for this, people, that their left back is going to be Oliver Skip. It could be 7 or 8.
Is that right? I'm definitely not watching the game then.
Apparently.
Gosh. Now Harry's really making me not want to watch the game. Harry was telling us in the green room that he's actually going for a nice long walk. Yeah. I did that when they played. I was telling the guys when they played Liverpool in the Champions League. Just went for a nice long walk. Ended up like a Forrest Gump type run. I just kept going, until I knew it was safe to come home. Okay, Tom, with all that said, right, if there's any team that can just be so Jekyll and Hyde, and as we all call them, Spursy, it's Spurs, right? So when I was thinking about the show today, I was thinking about my cousin said to me, "Go, Soph, it's Mission Impossible," and I said, "Yes, but do they have an Ethan Hunt?" I mean, their Ethan Hunt is usually Son, and he's really mostly been crap this season. But when you're fighting for Champions League, is there going to be an Ethan Hunt that rises and escapes?
Hey,
Helps
look,
them escape.
if it means losing £100 to Dan, I hope James Maddison puts 10 in the net. That'd be great. But it's difficult, isn't it? Like Richarlison's, as Asar points out, is injured as well. It's weird because they went to City earlier on in the season and came away with a 3-3 draw, as well. There's just something about Tottenham that they don't like. But the problem is that in that game, Spurs were in a much better period of form. Destiny Udogie, of course, was there. But Brian Hill started that game. So it's not like, they had all their best players available. I think Basuma's also out for this one as well. He won't be there either tonight. And he's supposedly an Arsenal fan, so we've lost that element. But Kulusevski is an Arsenal fan, you might remember. So there's that element. On that, the player's side.
It's an Arsenal fan.
He is.
James wasn't
Maddison
against us a couple of weeks ago. He was bloody bang on it.
Yeah, he was. I think he's very professional, and that's what they're. And that's the kind of leans quite nicely into the point I was going to make is that James Maddison came out this week and was like, "Look, we don't care about the whole Arsenal Spurs thing. Like, we're professional. We want to win. We want to be in the Champions League next season." I think what sometimes people forget is that players aren't actually fans of the club they play for 99 times out of 100. That they're just athletes, they're competitors, they're sportsmen and women, and they want to win their games. If it was the fans out there on the pitch, I'd understand them kicking it in their own net. But that's not what their players. That's not what players are designed to do. That's not what's ingrained to you as a footballer as you develop and train and grow and are coached every single week. I have no doubt that Tottenham and the team will be trying to win this game. That Ange Postecoglou will be drilling it into them. He will certainly be talking about the fact that their own fans, I think, are indifferent. He probably would have, battered that out of them this week and been saying, "I don't want any of this rubbish." I'm not going to try and put on an Australian accent.
Go on, mate.
I think that he would have absolutely been drilling it about this game, saying, "If you want to be in Champions League next season, we need to win this game." And forget all of the noise, forget all the rhetoric and the narrative to it, forget all about the rivalries. And in his press conference, he was right. I enjoyed what he said about, bragging rights mean jack, It's about the trophies. It's about where you want to go, which is for Tottenham more than perhaps any other club. It's really important that they actually deliver a trophy soon. So it's, for me, whilst I think that they will try and win it, I agree with both Dan and Harry that there is no Ethan Hunt there. I don't think there is anyone that will change things for them.
Well, Manchester City certainly have, I don't know how many Ethan Hunts. They have a ton. And, I don't know what it is about me. I mean, I think we're all dreamers, right? We all want to believe, and football serves up some insane moments. I mean, last night, I thought Aston Villa were dead and buried. I mean, Jurgen Klopp goes and makes 4 subs. Sorry, I'm not going to say the word, but what a fool. I mean, that totally changed the landscape of the game. Harry, I don't know if Arsenal players are watching around, Saka's house tonight. I don't know if you've heard anything on the grapevine. Mikel Arteta maybe will take his wife out on a date tonight, a very rare date.
As Rebecca on a long walk with Harry, don't you know?
Yeah, they're all coming on a walk.
Is he coming on your walk? But how much does last night change tonight, even though mathematically it's all still possible? Do you think it does?
I think had Villa lost, there would have been a bit more there for Tottenham. Like, they would have looked at this and sort of been licking their lips a little bit more. But I still think that the draw was enough to keep Tottenham interested. Like, it should keep Tottenham interested. The problem is that regardless of how interested they are, I just don't think they're good enough. That's my big problem with this. As I said before, I think stylistically they're gonna open up for City, and I think that's a big problem. The other thing is, I know like everyone's saying that the players are professional, and Ange Postecoglou's been saying all of the right things. Honestly, like, I do think that subconsciously this stuff will creep into their mindset tonight. Like, I really do. I'm not saying that you're going to get someone through on goal.
In what way? Which part, Harry?
I think when their fans boo when they score. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, like, say for example, you're someone who is in and out of the team. Let's say you're Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, okay, who I think probably this summer is going to get moved on by Tottenham. Okay, I think when he's come into the team this season, it's been obvious that he's not the dynamic midfielder that Ange Postecoglou needs, and he's probably going to go. If you're him, do you really want to be the guy that handed Arsenal the title on top of that? Like, I feel like you're kind of digging your own grave a little bit as a Tottenham player. So it's like, yes, you're going to try because you're a professional, but there will be a tiny little bit in your mind that knows you're going to be digging your own grave. And even in Ange Postecoglou's case, right, where over the last few months, people have started to go, he's a bit naive and he doesn't work on this and he doesn't work on that. And there have been questions asked of him, whereas after 10 games, he was the Messiah. I think for him as well, like, does it do him any favors, by the way, if Tottenham end up handing the title to us? It probably doesn't. Like, he's still going to be there next season, whether they make the Champions League or not. But does it actually do him any favors to have that status with the Tottenham fans? Because they're not like us. They don't put their club first because they're not used to success. They are a miserable lot. That's the truth of it. And because of that, their mindset is different to ours. And it's very hard to get into their minds, I think, and understand how they're feeling. The bitterness takes over with them. It really does.
Yeah. Well, I thought Martin Keown made a comment on, I think it was TalkSport last week, where he said Spurs' goal every season is to try and do better than Arsenal or just finish above Arsenal. You know, their strategic objectives when the season starts aren't aggressive. And I think Ange, who we talked about him last time we were on the show together. I've been up and down over, but that press conference, I saw a lot of comments from Tottenham fans saying, "Oops, is he pulling the Antonio Conte?" It felt like maybe he's seen how the club is run, you know, what he knows he's going to get or not get in the summer, a little bit of a defeatist attitude. Now, Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. In fact, I'll have all three of you answer this because it's kind of fun as well. Squaddies, you can let me know too. It's 0-0. It's in injury time. And you are Son, who's a legend, right? I get what Harry's saying with certain players, Højbjerg and stuff like that. But let's take someone like Son, who is the club right now. And even if it was Harry Kane. But it's you. You're going to take the penalty, and it means potentially handing Arsenal the title. Darren Bent was talking about this on TalkSport this morning. Do you put it in row Z or do you bury the bastard?
You bury the bastard. And the reason you do that is because you're a professional footballer. And I don't believe that Ange Postecoglou or the players out there at any given moment will want to get destroyed by Manchester City. I think the fans want that. I think the fans want them to roll over. I think the fans will be devastated if they win, or take a point. But I don't think the players will. Listen, I know Lee knows someone within the club that everybody knows on here, but I won't say it because it's for Lee to say, not me. And they said, Lee, I guarantee you and I promise you, we will be playing against Manchester City with all that we can. What people don't realise, so for no one's talking about, is Tottenham might play brilliant tonight and it might still not be enough. Mm-hmm. Nobody's talking about Man City. Everyone's talking about what Tottenham's going to turn up. Are they going to try and get a point? Are they going to go for it? Is Ange going to care? The fans going to care? Or are Arsenal going to support this? They're coming up against the best team in the world. And they're probably going to get hammered. So I don't think any of that matters. To me, it's if Man City's going to win. To answer your question, yeah, I think he buries it because he's a professional footballer. And I don't think he's thinking about that. I think he's personally selfish, thinking, I want to play Champions League next year. I'm going to put this in the goal. So I think that would be where I would be at there. But Tottenham fans are very different to the players. And the reason they're different is because at the start of this season, they were told that Harry Kane is off and that Ange has come in and they're going to probably finish in the top 8 and it's going to be a bad season. They've done better than 8th. They've got 5th, it looks like now, right? The only other things they can look at is, can we beat Arsenal in the North London derby, home or away? No, not this season. The other thing is, can we try and ruin Arsenal's title race by beating them? No, they didn't do that. So what can we do now? Well, now what we can do, finally, the gods have gifted the fixture list to add to this. We can now ruin their season by doing this. Yeah, success. Lift that trophy up, people. This is success for Tottenham. What an embarrassment. What an embarrassing club. That's what they are.
Yeah.
That is what they
I-
are. They are an embarrassing club. And that's
Someone
when I've gone
agree.
60 years without a title and for over 33 years before winning an FA Cup. I was 4 when they won an FA Cup, by the way. I'm 36, 37 this year. Just to put it into
I wasn't
context.
born. Christ.
Me neither. Someone told me today that that
Feel
he's
old now.
a Spurs fan. He's a season ticket holder. He told me that he'd ordered a blow up Premier League trophy and was going to put blue and white ribbons on it and take it to the ground.
No,
But this is who they
these
are,
are adults.
Harry. This is who
Are
they
these
are.
adults?
Yeah. Yeah,
This
great.
is the
Same
only
age as me.
joy you get as a Tottenham
Yeah.
fan. It's the only
Exactly.
joy you're allowed.
Embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really embarrassing. I find it embarrassing. Tom, did you want to riff off what Dan said, or are you burying the penalty?
Again, I think Dan kind of covered it really early. Like, it's difficult to look at it from a Tottenham perspective because I only know Arsenal. You know, like if it was me, I'm burying it because that's what I expect Arsenal players to do. But if I'm trying to squeeze myself into a Tottenham fan's head, I don't know. If it was a fan, I think they sky it. But I think as I'll stick with my view on the players, I still think they bury it. You know, so.
I think Harry, if it was the other way, I don't think Harry's burying that penalty for
No,
Tottenham
if
to
it
win
was
the league.
me-
Of the three of you,
Harry's
I'm
not
going to
burying it anyway.
No, I am just as petty as they are. So there is no way that if it was me taking
great.
the penalty kick, I'm going to put it over the bar. Absolutely
love
putting
it.
it over the bar because I'm as petty as they are.
I love that. Speaking of petty, Pep Guardiola, it's very salty. Tom, I'm going to start with you on this one. I think, Harry, you may have talked about this today. I saw a tweet that you made. It's just, let me ask you this, Tom. He's really, like when someone in a PR situation, in a crisis communications, they double down on the innocence and we haven't done anything wrong and we're great and whatever. Could all this come back to bite Pep in the arse, even though most of this happened before he came? He's benefited from all of it.
Well,
To me.
yeah, I wrote a piece about this earlier about his kind of comments about Arsenal spending along with Chelsea United, and he's clever because he always talks about specific time periods. He doesn't kind of open it up to since I took over or since so and so came in or since whatever. He always limits it to specific time periods which suit whatever agenda he wants to peddle. And he gets very much riled by accusations about Manchester City spending because he feels, as a manager, that those accusations are undermining his achievements. Right now, if I was him, I wouldn't go down that route of be like pointing fingers at the other clubs. I'd be pointing to the individual successes that he's had at City, the improvements to specific players that he's brought through, like bringing a player like Phil Foden through, integrating him into the team and turning him into a player that can, keep the likes of Bernardo Silva at the team. That's what I'd be pointing to and showing and showcasing as an example of, no, it's not just about spending money. We're bringing in players that are doing this. Rico Lewis, Oscar Bob as well, involved in that previously. Cole Palmer, of course, too. So, but the thing is that he's not very thick-skinned, Pep, and you can get under his skin very easily. So his comments today about Arsenal spending, in particular, he says over the last 5 years, these clubs basically should have been doing. I'll read you the exact quote. He said, "Before, do you know what it was? It was the money that won titles. For that reason, why Man United should have won all the titles, all of them. And in the second, Chelsea all the titles, and the third, Arsenal all the titles. They spent as much money in the last 5 years as us. They should be there. They are not there. For that reason, Girona shouldn't be in the Champions League and Leicester shouldn't win the Premier League years ago. Now it's boring. It's not boring. It's so difficult to be here again and we want to win it. But to do something that in this country no team has done, you have to be something special and exceptional, I would say." And he goes on a bit longer, but the point of like bringing Arsenal into it and the lack of context this has is like, since those 5 years he can talk about as a net spend, which is always a weird thing. I think Harry was touching upon this. Net spend's a horrible measure anyway, because it completely ignores the context of however the squad was when Arteta took over, for example, which was, let's be honest, a bit of a mess when he took over. It was a fractured dressing room that we had to rip up and turn back into a team that could then compete for titles, as we are doing now. Since Pep took over, City have spent in the region of 1.3 to 4 billion pounds on players. Arsenal in that time, which is obviously before Arteta, which includes the end of Arsene Wenger, it includes the summer with Pepe under Unai Emery as well, have spent around £1 billion. So you're looking at £300 million less, of course, than that City. Now you might in your head be thinking, oh, actually that's not as much as I thought it might be. Like the gap, £300 million between City and Arsenal, and look at the success they've had and look at the success we've had. But actually what you do is then you start to look at the differences in squad at the start of that period of time back in 2016. So people, and rightfully, big up the recruitment that Pep Guardiola has done. But don't forget that Pep Guardiola, when he took over in 2016, inherited Kevin De Bruyne, David Silva, Sergio Aguero, Vincent Kompany, Nicolas Otamendi, Raheem Sterling. You know, Arteta inherited, as Harry was saying in his show, Socrates. No offense to Socrates, but that he was a starting centre half for us when Arteta took over. And that's the difference that you have. It's not only the fact that they've spent £300 million more; it's that they had established world-class stars when Pep Guardiola took over compared to us. So we can talk all the live long day about 5 years. But there's a reason why Arsenal have had to spend as much and why anyone has to spend as much as they do, because that's what you have to do if you want to win.
I'm going to get Harry's take, but Dan's got to go. And I appreciate you jumping in, Dan. Give everyone your 30-second soundbite or however many seconds you have before you got to duck out, before you leave us. And please follow Dan here and subscribe to Football's 12th Man podcast as well. Keep smashing it over there, Dan.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate all of you in the chat. And thanks for inviting me on. Listen, I actually agree with what Tom said, and I didn't always, if I'm honest. I looked at the sign of £600 million that Arteta had spent, thinking, come on, that should be enough to be putting us into where we should be to get across the line. And when you look at it, like Tom has just broken it down, I think Pep knows what he's doing. Pep's playing the mind games. Pep's talking, and he's thinking, well, everyone should be above us with what they're doing in terms of what they're spending. But you're right. I think Arteta would have quite liked to have company when he arrived. I think Arteta would have quite liked to have had Yaya Toure when he arrived. I think Arteta would have quite liked to have had, I can't remember some of the names you said, Tom, but he mentioned them earlier. Sergio Aguero when he arrived. So you're right. Really, there was only Aubameyang when Arteta turned up that was the kind of elite level striker. Everybody else was kind of a little miles behind. So I think it's a fair point to say, and I think I was kind of blindsided myself when I was talking about how much we'd spent and what we were looking at doing, and in some ways what we'd spend it on, because I don't think we've always got it right, to be fair. But this season, there's no doubt that Arteta has definitely deserved another year moving forward. And at the start of the season, people said he had to win something, and I was one of those. And I do think that we do need to look at the domestic cups next season a little bit more seriously if we're going to be like harsh or critical. But he's got us 2 years running in the title challenge, man. And that's where we want it to be. Hopefully we can get across the line. We get a good another transfer window. I don't know the links, and I'm sure we'll go into that another time. But we need to get that right, and then we move into it, man. So yeah, let's go in there. I'm not going to say I love Arteta. Big up, Tebow. I love Arsenal. There we go. How does that work? I love Arsenal.
We like that.
Both, man.
Big up to all of you, man. I've got to shoot, but it's been a pleasure.
All right, Dan. Take care, mate. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care,
Thanks
guys.
to Dan
Bye-bye.
for popping in. Harry, I know you've got very strong feelings about this. And, Pep to me is something, he's a master at mind games, but in a really dark way. I find him to be a little dark lately.
Yeah, the thing is, Pep's been around the block a lot. And people always say, well, he's somebody in my chat earlier called him a checkbook manager, which I think is a little bit harsh, because I would still say that regardless of the resources he's had and the difference that makes, you would still put him in the conversation of the greatest manager of all time. He's not quite my number one, but he's up there. And if anybody came to me and argued that he was the one, I wouldn't really be too annoyed by that or push back on that too hard, because I think he's done brilliant things. He's managed at Barcelona where the politics are unreal. If you can manage the politics of Barcelona and you can be successful there and get through all those periods all that period of time, then you got to have something about you in terms of the mind games, the politics side of it, and being able to put your points across. I took issue with half of what he said, not all of it. So I took issue with the fact that he brought Arsenal into the conversation. That was my big gripe with it, because Arsenal are behind you in terms of the project. All the rest of it. The project started later. There's been less money spent, as you guys have mentioned. We were starting from a different place in terms of the players that we had. But to point out at Man United and at Chelsea and say that it's not all about spend because they've spent money badly and look at where they are, I think he's absolutely spot on. And I think Pep feels like he's being attacked all the time because of all the stuff with the charges and the alleged breaches of the rules. I think he feels like everyone's coming for him all of the time and he has to defend his achievements and stuff. But then, so I understand that, but to completely dismiss the fact that you were able, when you came in, to go through how many goalkeepers until you found the one that you wanted, to go through how many fullbacks until you found the one that you wanted. And basically you were given free reign at a club that was already superior to everybody else. That to dismiss that and ignore that context, I think is where he's gone wrong. But I'm fine with him bringing up Man United. I'm fine with him bringing up Chelsea. The Arsenal bit, like, I don't know if I'd be saying that given that the title's not done yet, if I were him.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, I'm going to get you guys out on 3 non-Manchester City and Tottenham questions. And then after today, I tell you what, I'm very excited about not having to speak about Tottenham. Got to tell you.
Unless we get a big gift.
By the way, we've got Pep Guardiola in chat right now, and he's agreeing with you, Harry, that he is attacked all the time. Okay, so I asked this question on the show last night, but I've been wanting to ask you guys this. Great 1-0 at Manchester United. One of the things I felt was, as fans, we're not quite ready to handle the 1-0s again like we were back in the day. But the team are, and that was sensational. What a mature professional performance. And I was saying on the show last night that for me, Trossard is slowly becoming a cult hero. I know we haven't won anything, but there are certain players that endear themselves to the fans. And I think he's just been an amazing signing. The goals he scored are massive goals against really big clubs in big moments. Question: is Trossard having a better season, or is he a better player than Martinelli? Tom?
He's a better player, yeah. I mean, he's got a lot of years on Martinelli. He's had a lot more time to develop. Is Martinelli going to be a better player than him when he's the same age as Trossard? I should think so, based on what I've seen. But as of this moment, Trossard is and should rightly be a better player, really, for at this stage of his career. So, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he's more consistent. I think he fits stylistically into Arteta's system a lot more. He's a lot more thought. What's the word? I was going to say thoughtful. I don't know if it's the right word. In like the key moments, he's more measured and composed. Probably a better way of putting it than Martinelli's. Martinelli, I always feel like the thing. If Martinelli could do the right thing in the key moment, he'd be as good as Saka, in my opinion, because he's got all the talent in the world to be able to be, in my view, as good as Saka. The difference between him and Saka is so much more decisive, so much more. I like that word from Suga in the chat who says clutch. Saka is a lot more clutch than Martinelli is. And he always seems to play it just that one touch too far. He seems to take the wrong decision at the wrong time, or he's a much more confidence-driven player than Saka is. And I think if he was to become more composed and he could just work on that final decision, then you could unlock a brilliant player. But as of right now, Trossard is and should rightly be, I think, is a much more experienced figure. I think he's a better player. But who do I think would be, if Martinelli could fast forward time, I would hope that Martinelli would be then considered the same age as Trossard to be a better player at that point.
What's your take, Harry?
I find this one hard because I think that if you're focusing on finishing ability, decision making, those kind of things, then yeah, Trossard is clear of him. There's no doubt about that. We've said it for a while. If you get one chance in a game, you want it to fall to Leandro Trossard. I know people talk about that Villa miss and all the rest of it, but Generally speaking, that is the case.
Mm.
However, I think that Martinelli gives the team more. I think you can go large periods in a game where Leandro Trossard is really ineffective. And then he pops up and he scores a goal and everybody forgets that. And rightly so makes that the kind of secondary point of discussion because he's impacted the game. But in terms of stretching opposition, Martinelli's better. In terms of having someone that's going to go up and down that flank, I think Martinelli's better. I personally trust Martinelli more defensively on that left-hand side as well. I think he gets back better than Trossard. And when he does get back, I feel like he's got greater body strength and he's far better at helping the left back and the left centre back getting out of some of the situations they find themselves in. I thought against Tottenham, and I know I'm highlighting one game, but it's just to make this point. Against Tottenham in that first half, as great as we were, as solid as we were, Trossard was driving me insane. He was dropping back into our own half and over dribbling away at Tottenham. What are you doing? Like I trust Martinelli so much more in those defensive phases. And I know that's not what he's on the pitch to do first and foremost. But I think all-round game, I still give Martinelli the edge. But I think obviously he's lacking in confidence right now. Trossard's going through a bit of a purple patch, which is great. And Arteta's right to pick Trossard at this moment in time. But I still think that there's enough there in Martinelli that when he gets to Trossard's age, as Tom said, he will be more complete than Leandro Trossard is.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, I've seen some players just give up on Martinelli a little bit, which I find completely shocking. The injury,
Fair
a lot of a lot of a lot of the squaddies are talking about the foot injury, and that he just hasn't been the same after that. He really wasn't the same. He's not had
He
a
hasn't
great
had a good season.
No, he just hasn't. And that
No.
happens. Doesn't happen to Saka, but it has happened to Martinelli. Okay, let me get you guys on this one. Kai Havertz. I don't know how many searches or, if you looked at data on social media, how many times his name has popped up. But for me, as much as I've enjoyed Trossard this season, I've loved the Havertz story. For me, is one of the best stories of our season. To overcome the adversity, to be vilified by your own fans, vilified by your own club, disrespected by your own club. They won't even put your name up on social media when you score against them. For me, Tom, Kai Havertz is one of the best signings of the season, not only for Arsenal, but the Premier League in all of Europe. Do you think I've gone too far?
No, I don't think so. I think he's in our top 6 players of the season for Arsenal. I think you'd be hard pressed to find 6 players in the Arsenal team you put ahead of him. I think he's been so good. I think it's been a real lesson for Arsenal fans, the Havertz thing, because I remember doing shows at the beginning of the season where my comment section was filled with people saying, can we sell him? Can we get rid of him in January? How much can we sell him for already? And it's similar to the Martinelli thing we were just talking about. Some people are now writing off Martinelli, saying, "What would happen if we got a good bid for Martinelli?" And so it's the nature of social media. It's the nature of where we are in the world right now. Everything needs to be in such an immediate view. You have to have an immediate opinion on a different changing topic all the time. But patience is a virtue in football, because things can change in such a short amount of time. And for Havertz, it has been a season where it's completely changed. Everyone doubted the signing. There's no Arsenal fan that thought that deal was going to be a guaranteed banker. But I didn't. I thought it was. I think I described it as this will be the signing that Arteta could fall on his sword for. I really did think it was. If it doesn't work out, this could be a real hammer blow to Arteta and Arsenal's recruitment under him. And thank goodness it's not been. Because he's turned up clutch in such big moments. The goal that I think gets talked about the least is his equaliser at Luton. I've been writing up. We're doing a big thing at the moment for the Mirror for the end of the season, kind of like looking back at the campaign. And one of my jobs I've got to give you a brief glimpse behind the scenes is looking at the 10 games from this season. And I've picked that Luton game, and I pick out that Luton game not only because obviously Declan Rice's late winner, but nobody really talks about that Havertz equaliser, because it had come just I think it was about a month after he scored the last-minute goal at Brentford, which was kind of a turning moment for him, and obviously that followed the penalty that he was gifted in the Bournemouth game as well. But that moment got overshadowed by Declan Rice's winner, but was such an important goal for Arsenal and in their season, because it didn't come like late on. It was like the 60th minute or something he scored that goal. But he's just gone leaps and bounds. And now he's he's been moved rightfully, finally, into the centre forward position, which I always was, yamming on about on the channel, saying get him out of midfield and put him up top, get him out of that midfield, because I just think he's as best as he can be when he's as close to the box as possible. And now he's turning up in big games, scoring as man of the match performance against Spurs, which for most players, if you have a man of the match performance in a North London derby, especially away from home, that kind of cements you as a bit of a cult hero, whatever. So for me, he cannot have done more to try and win fans over this season.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And Harry, to get your comments on Havertz, for me also, I think and a couple of people have talked about this in our chats over the last couple of weeks, is how impressive he is off the ball. And he provides the physicality up front that Gabriel and Saliba provide at the back. You could even throw Benjamin White into that a little bit. And he reminds me of Jesus season 1, where, yes, we wanted him to score goals, but what he did off the ball and what he provided for the way Arteta wanted to play was just the revelation of our squad. We're all screaming for a striker. Does a new striker coming in dismantle Havertz up front? We want like for like in every position. We need that competition. How do you see that rolling forward with the striker and Havertz and the season he's having? Because a lot of folks think that Havertz is Arteta's number one guy.
Yeah, I mean, I look at him and I think he's done a really, really good job. And I think you're right to highlight the stuff he does off the ball. And I felt like at the beginning of the season, we could see that to a point, but it wasn't turning into goals and assists and sort of those killer passes and killer contributions that people were looking for. And so, over the course of the season, we've seen the improvement and it's become more obvious what Kai Havertz does. You're right to make the comparison with Jesus, I think. But I think the difference is that Kai Havertz seems to be able to do all of the things outside of the box, but also get into the box when we are on the attack and finish things off. And for me, Gabriel Jesus doesn't do that. He's so good outside the box and buzzing in and around it, but very often he'd drop deep, get involved in the build-up, and then when we flash the ball across the 6-yard box, he wasn't there. And if your centre forward's not there, who's going to be there? So I think Havertz has actually taken it up another level. The problem is that you can fall into a false sense of security and go, well, now we don't need a striker. I still think we need an out-and-out striker, but you might be able to go now and buy a 40, 50 million pound striker that's going to come in and out of the team and rotate with Havertz and Jesus, and that be fine, rather than having to go and spend 120 million pounds plus on someone that you see as your main goal source. I like the fact that we don't have one main goal source. I know Saka's the leading scorer, but I like the fact that we spread it around the team. So that's what I would do. I would slightly pivot the plans in that I would now go, okay, if I buy a very specific profile of striker, I don't have to go crazy on the price, but it could be something different to what we have. And that might be the way forward, and spend big in another area.
Okay. I agree with both of you. Yeah. And although, Tom, if we don't sign Isaac, I'm not sure what his summer will end up looking like, but that's not going to happen. No way happening. Is it, Tom? It's not going to happen.
I don't think so. But
no,
if you can, yes, do it. just go to Newcastle and say, look, 120 million. Okay, we'll pay that. Yeah, please. We'll have it.
All right. So I'm going to get you guys out on this. We could talk about Saliba and Gabriel another day, but I want to get you guys out on how this all ends. Tom, swinging it back to you. The crescendo is here. It's been an incredible season. The journey has been intensely brilliant. No matter what happens for me, I am super proud of this team, and I'm very excited to be an Arsenal fan again. And, since the Champions League missed season, it's really just gone from mental strength to on the pitch strength to investing in the team. I think the one thing that we need to be better at is, clearing out, getting bang for our buck with certain players. What is your leave behind for the squaddies this evening as the season sets?
I could have been so cheeky, but I'm not going to be, because obviously this show's going to be out of date in 3 hours time. So
No,
it's
do it anyway because they don't care. We like this kind
no,
of
I
stuff.
know.
I mean, we
No,
watch old reruns of football
of course,
matches. Yeah.
but don't. I sent a little link to you guys in the private chat. Of course, I'll happily share it in the proper chat box as well. It's to a brilliant tweet by Andy Har. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's a very famous kind of clip of a man being arrested and put into a car, and he's like, "What's the charge? Enjoying a meal, a succulent Chinese meal." It goes further, but for monetization reasons, I won't say the rest of it. There's a brilliant, very famous clip. And Andy Har has just changed that to saying, "What's the charge? Celebrating a goal, a succulent Tottenham goal," which I think is just brilliant, to be
I love
honest.
it.
So I'll leave everybody with that, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. Don't be embarrassed about enjoying anything that goes Arsenal's way this evening. As Harry says, don't expect it to. But if it does, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing so.
Harry, what's your leave behind for the squaddies this evening?
It might feel like when you're in a title race that you got to win it now or it's never going to happen. And it felt like that last season. And once the dust settled, I think we all looked back and went, actually, this is just the beginning. And we're only 1 year further down the line. And we might not win it this year. But again, I think it's still so early on in terms of the life cycle of this team that actually, whatever happens, you should go into the summer really excited and looking forward to another season. And as Mikel Arteta keeps saying, enjoy the ride, because for so many years we weren't in this. Like, I know I keep saying enjoy the ride. I'm finding it horrendous. I'm struggling. I'm not sleeping at night. It's awful.
We won't tell anyone what happened to you at Old Trafford.
Exactly. I thought I had a panic attack at Old Trafford when Højlund got an opportunity. Like, it's easier said than done, but try and enjoy it and be excited about next season as well, because I think the life cycle of this Arsenal team is still pretty much at the beginning. And if we don't win it this year, we'll win it next year.
I love that. I'm going to get you guys back on to talk about something that David Hillier said. His biggest concern was you go close one season, you go close the next. It's hard. He thinks as an ex-player, it's really hard to pick yourself up a third season and, fight for a title. But we're going to get stuck into all of that because Harry and Tom are going to come back before everyone goes off on their summer holes. There's going to be a lot of football this summer as well. We've got Copa America here, the Euros, the Olympics. There's a lot going on and a lot happening. Follow Harry here. Harry, what have you got coming up? Let the kids know.
Just recorded a podcast which has gone out now, which we avoided talking about tonight's game as much as possible. It did come up in the chat a little bit, but everything on there is still very valid outside of tonight's game. So check that out. And the Chronicles of Aguna has gone daily now. So there'll be plenty more.
Thomas, what about you? What's going on?
My mother calls me that.
See, I know. I feel like your mum sometimes, though.
In some ways. Indeed.
I'm old enough to be your mum anyway. So anyway, go on.
I think obviously we'll be doing tomorrow morning. We'll be doing a show at 8 a.m. as we always do every single morning UK time. 8 a.m. We'll be talking about whatever happens this evening. We'll be thinking about the ramifications, what that means for the final day of the season, and rounding up any other Arsenal news, of course, in the meantime as well. So you can catch it at the Gooner Talk every day, 8 a.m. UK time.
Brilliant stuff.
Is it bad that I've started listening to Tom while I brush my teeth in the morning?
No, because
at least it's not in the shower.
Yeah, there you go. There's a good point. No, Harry, because I listen to him as I'm putting my pajamas on because it's midnight here. So you're brushing your teeth. I'm putting my PJs on. Yep. Only when it's cold, of course, because who likes to wear pajamas in bed? Do you guys wear pajamas?
Pajama bottoms in the winter, but Otherwise, no.
No, not really.
Oh, I'm telling everyone this, but yeah.
You know what? Funnily enough, this is the stuff the kids like to know. Crazy stuff. All right, everyone. Enjoy the game. I don't know if I could say that, but enjoy your evening, no matter what you're doing. If you're taking a walk like Harry, if you have to be involved in the game like Tom is now, try and have an emergency survival toolkit next to you. That might involve, soap, alcohol, whatever it is. Enjoy. And as Super Kev says, don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. Keep the love coming. And I will see you tomorrow night, live again at 6 with Harriet Pryor from Sky Sports and Kwaku, your boy, Harry, coming on the show.
Top lad.
He is a top lad. At ease, everyone. At ease. Good night.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.